So I'm so excited to be here with you, and today I'm going to be talking about something that we really need to take note of, something that is so important to us as parents in our parenting journey. And I'll be talking about 5 things every parent must do if they want to raise successful children. But before then, I want to say welcome to everyone joining me this afternoon. Wherever you're joining from, you are welcome. You are welcome. My name is Sandra Oluwadare, and I'm the founder of Winning in Parenting. I'm a parenting coach and a child behavior consultant. And if you are new to this channel, please, I want you to click the subscribe button, and I want you to tap the notification bell as well so you don't miss out on any content that I share here on parenting. So I'm going to be talking about this very important topic because as parents, we usually have our desired outcome for our children. There's a certain way you want your child to become. You have great plans for the child. You know, there are so many things that you have envisioned about your child, and it's every parent's desire that their child, fulfills destiny and becomes great, successful in life and all of that. And because of this desired outcome that we want to see in our children, we have such long lists of the things we want our children to do. We want them to be disciplined. We want them to be intelligent, smart. We want them to be courteous, to have lots of etiquette and all of that. We want them to be spiritual, to have a relationship with God. There are so many things that we want our children to have or to be or to learn to do. But there's something important that we do not really take into consideration as much as that of our children. How many times do we really ask ourselves, so for me to get my child to deliver on this outcome, for me to get my child from point A to point X, what do I need to do? Who do I need to become to deliver this outcome for this child? For example, you want to have a child who is assertive, or you want to have a child who has very great manners and wonderful etiquette and all of that. But as much as you desire that for the child, you do not model those actions in any way to the child. You want to have a child who's royalty. You want to have a child who is well-mannered, a child who loves learning. But the child has never seen your love for learning. The child has never seen you display any form of etiquette or good manners. Now, what are we trying to tell this child in reality? So it's a case of you saying one thing and doing another thing. So really and truly, for us to get our children to that particular point where we say, okay, this is what I have in mind for you, or this is what God says about you and all of that, we also need to look inwards. We need to begin to ask ourselves these very important questions. In what areas do I need to work on myself? What are the things I need to do to ensure that I'm able to move my child from point A to point B? We need to work on ourselves as parents so we can have better relationships with our children, so we can be better role models to them, so we can, lead them right to that place where they're supposed to be, so we can set them on the right path, so we can lay a solid foundation that their lives can be built on. Parents who work on themselves, there are so many benefits attached to you working on yourself as a parent, right? You're able to create this environment where the child can thrive. You're able to, get the child up to the level where the child can begin to say, okay, I can take on life as I am. I can navigate through life successfully. I can navigate through challenges and still thrive. So we can see that the bulk of work actually lies with us parents. We need to develop ourselves. We need to improve on ourselves in lots of ways. We need to improve on our mindset, on our parenting skills, because we upskill in different areas of our lives. Like we go for courses to improve our career, to improve our businesses and all of that. Even our walk with God, we go on retreats and all of that. But when it comes to parenting, how much importance are we truly attaching to this great responsibility that has been committed into our hands in this office of parenthood? And that's what I'm talking about today. So ultimately, working on yourself as a parent is an ongoing journey. It involves self-improvement, it involves a compassion to being the best, a commitment to being the best role model for your child. I mean, look at it. If you want your child to get to this particular level, it's not just about, because children see and children do. They will do more of what they see you do than what you just preach to them. So this is so important. So I'm talking about 5 things that every parent must do if they want to raise children who will be successful. Once again, I want to click the subscribe button if you are not subscribed to this channel, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any content I share. So the first thing I'll be talking about is self-reflection and self-awareness. How aware are you of you? How aware are you of you? This is so important. As parents, we need to get to the point where we are reflecting on who we are. We need to get to that point where we're reflecting on how we have been engineered, how we have been raised, how we have been fashioned, how we have been molded, because we were handled by different people. Even when couples come together, when a man comes and a woman comes and they want to begin a family, we find that we have 2 different people coming from 2 different backgrounds who have been programmed possibly in 2 different ways. They have been handled by 2 different sets of people with 2 different belief systems most times. So as you're coming into the family, as you're coming into this office of parenthood, it is important that we become aware of how we have been raised. It's important we become aware of how we have been engineered. If we are not aware of this, it will have a great impact, most times negative impact, on the children that we're raising. Because you want to raise a child who has this kind of belief system, but you are coming from a background where your belief system is totally different from the one you want your child to have. And if you don't go back to correct those things, you realize that you are planting with one hand and uprooting with the second hand. So you're trying to move your child, you're trying to program your child to have this particular mindset when you have not dealt with the mindset that you've been raised with. And at certain times, you discover that that mindset that you have brought into parenting would show up once in a while, sometimes frequently, in your present parenting journey. So it's important that as parents who want to raise successful children, we need to become aware of who we are. We need to become aware of how we have been raised. We need to become aware of our belief systems, the ones that we have brought into parenting, so that we do not unknowingly begin to project on our children the very same things that we vowed not to repeat with our children, right? So you need to understand the parenting style that you were brought up with. Some of our parents were very harsh. I mean, they didn't know better. Some of them didn't know better. Some of them did a great job. Some of them did not know better. And so they deployed all sorts of harsh punishment and all of that in the name of discipline. Now, if you do not get yourself to the point where you become self-aware to say, okay, so this is how I was raised. This is what I think discipline is. But with the children that we're raising today, you cannot deploy that same kind of discipline. And so because I realized that this is how I was raised, then I should reparent myself, or I should drop those disempowering styles of parenting so that I don't project them on my children. That's what I'm talking about. Self-reflection, self-awareness. What are your weaknesses, right? Not living in denial to say, okay, I usually get very angry and all of that, but you know what, I'm just fine, I'm okay and all of that. No, we don't need to live in self-denial. You know that there's a challenge in this particular area of your life. You sit into yourself and you're able to reflect, to say, you know what, I need to change in this particular area. I need to do better. I need to upskill in this particular area. That's what I'm talking about. It is so important that we're able to reflect, because self-awareness is the foundation of personal growth. If you're not able to point your fingers to the areas where you need to work on, or the areas where you're lagging, then there will be challenges, especially because you are handling humans, you are handling children, you are molding their destinies, you are shaping them. And so it becomes very important that you become self-aware of how you were raised. Now, were you raised in a home where when daddy is coming, everybody is scampering, everybody is running, looking for the nearest exit, to get out of sight, because once daddy comes, he's going to yell, he's going to probably hit somebody and all of that? Were you raised in a home where you could only speak up when your parents are not there, so you could only grumble or just murmur? So you grew up in a home where you dare not stand up to talk to your father and all of that. These are the issues you need to bring up so that you can draw your roadmap from where you're coming from to where you want to get to, so that within that distance between the 2 points, you are able to identify the disempowering beliefs, the disempowering parenting styles, and discard them so that you can offer your child the best version of yourself. You need to reflect on your strengths. You need to reflect on your weaknesses, your parenting style. You need to be aware of your emotions. What are the things that trigger you? What are your biases, right? If you cannot place a finger on these things, right, you would have issues relating with your children, because one of the ways that you can actually help regulate your emotions is when you're able to identify the things that trigger you. So if you don't self-reflect and you're not able to say, okay, when this person does this, or when I'm spoken to in this particular manner, I react this way, and I just explode and I just flare up and I can just yell at anybody at my sight or in my sight. Do you understand? So it is so important that we are able to self-reflect. And then the next thing I want to talk about is continuous learning. To raise a successful child, especially in today's world, we need to keep learning. It is so important. I mean, we cannot downplay the importance of evolving in your parenting journey. You need to stay informed about child development. You need to stay informed about effective parenting strategies. You need to stay informed about expected behaviors, age-appropriate expectations from your child. For example, if you do not know that when children are around 2 years old and all of that, they start becoming self-aware. And that's when they start saying no to almost everything you say. Come and eat, no. Come and dress up, no, and all of that. If you are not aware that that is expected behavior, you're just going to start feeling bad to say, oh, this child keeps saying no to everything I say. This child doesn't listen. You get to the point where your child is throwing himself on the floor and all of that. The child is back talking and you're there feeling bad and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know why this child can just not listen to me. It's because you don't understand that this child does not know how to process information effectively. He doesn't know how to communicate effectively. So the child wants to tell you something, but he doesn't have the right words. And so the child throws himself on the floor, hoping that you would understand his needs, hoping that you would understand that, oh, my diaper is wet, hoping that you will understand that I'm cold, I'm hot. Can you help me? Can you change my clothes? Do you understand? So children are, every behavior is communication. Children are forever communicating with you. But if you don't understand age-appropriate expectations as regards behavior, you are just going to be on your own saying, oh, this child is doing this to me. This child is so rude and all of that. Meanwhile, you are missing the fact that there is something that is triggering that behavior. You're missing the fact that there is a root cause that is responsible for why your child is acting in that particular way. So there is need for continuous learning as parents. You need to take courses. We have lots of that in Winning in Parenting. You need to take courses. You need to join support groups. You need to get books. You just need to get valuable insights. You need to evolve as a parent. What you needed to parent your child 20 years ago might not suffice now. What worked for you 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago might no longer be relevant today. So you cannot just sit in a place to say, oh, I know it all. That was how I raised my first 3 children. Now that I have the 4th, I think I'll just do the same thing. No, every child is unique in their own sense of the word. You need to discover the uniqueness of each child. And how do you go about doing that if you don't have proper information? So you need to educate yourself about child development. You need to educate yourself about effective parenting techniques. You need to understand what is expected of you as a parent, and you also need to understand what is expected of your child at a particular phase. This is so important. And then the next thing you need to understand if you want to raise successful children in today's world is effective communication. This is such a big deal. You need to understand how to communicate with your child. Imagine 2 people living in a home or 2 people working in the same space and they don't know how to communicate effectively. How will the relationship thrive? How will they get to their destination? How will they achieve their goals? So as a family, how would you achieve your goals if you're not communicating right? If you're not communicating effectively? This is so important. Parents, we need to learn how to communicate in such a way that our children are receiving the information we are passing exactly how we want them to receive it. Because we find parents saying one thing and the children are hearing another thing entirely. This causes a lot of friction in parent-child relationships. We need to get to the point where we're able to, relate with our children and we understand them and they understand us in turn. We need to learn to improve on our communication. How well are you able to listen to your child? Now, lots of parents can hear what their children are saying. Lots of parents can see the attitude or the vibes their children are emitting. But how many parents can hear what their children are not saying? How many parents can see what their children are not saying? How many people can decode the vibes that their children are emitting? This is what I'm talking about. Can you actively listen to your child? Can you hear what your child is not telling you? You find your child sulking all over the place in the house. You find your child all of a sudden getting withdrawn. The child is locking himself up in the room. The child doesn't want to be in your company anymore. He doesn't want to sit with you at the table. The child doesn't want to play with his siblings anymore. And you as a parent, you are just there and you think it's okay to just leave the child to be by himself because you think that teenagers or preteens, they're like that, they get like that sometimes. No, it's not up for you to just jump into conclusion. You need to understand what is triggering that behavior. You need to understand why the child all of a sudden wants to be by himself. You need to understand why a child who was once boisterous, vivacious, very assertive, is now slowly becoming or acting like a coward. You need to understand why the child is now cowering in fear, why the child can no longer speak up. These are vibes, these are signs that the child is showing you. These are signs the child is emitting. What are you doing with that feedback? It's so important that we're able to actively listen to our children. Most times, parents listen to respond to their children. Most times, we're not listening to understand what the child is saying. It's not all the time you listen to lecture. Sometimes listen to understand. Sometimes listen so that you can get the big picture. When you listen to understand, you pick things that the child did not even mention. When you listen to understand, you are able to get a better perspective of where this child is coming from. But when your listening is focused on the next response you want to give to the child, you miss out on a lot of things. The child is trying to divulge information, and then the next thing you interrupt and you're like, hey, I told you it was going to get to this point. How do you expect the child to continue telling you anything? The child is going to lock up and he's not going to tell you anything. And that is breaching the trust the child has in you. So we need to be very intentional when it comes to how we communicate with our children. Don't listen to interrupt. Yeah, there are times where you need to jump in, where you need to interject, where you need to stop the child as he's speaking. But it's not all the time. Because remember, you are also trying to build trust. You're also trying to nurture the parent-child relationship. So let the child speak. Let the child understand that, you know what, I'm a safe space. You can actually come to me as you are. You can actually unburden. Let the child know that this home, this kitchen, this living room, this bedroom is a safe space for you. You can come here at any time to unburden. This is so important. It's not always about what you have to say. It's not always about what the criticism you want to just rub in the child's face. It's not always about the lecture you have to give the child. Sometimes you just want to soak in everything the child is saying so that you can come up with a better response that can help the child. And so that you can also earn the trust of the child. So it's important that we listen actively. It's important that we have empathetic responses. We don't need to be sarcastic about our responses. The child is telling you something like, hey, I told you, this child, There's no empathy in that response. Let's not forget to always put ourselves in our children's shoes. Let's learn to see the world through their eyes. Don't forget that you were once a child. How did you feel? I want you to cast your mind back at when your parents used to scold you. How did you feel when they would just stand over you and talk and talk and talk and talk? How did you feel? It wasn't a good feeling. And so why are we reliving that same cycle with our children? Why are we reliving that same cycle? I'm not saying you shouldn't be firm with your child. I'm not saying you should not exercise your authority as a parent, but I want you to understand that we're also talking about building a relationship. The child is coming to tell you one and you're reacting that way. How about the many others the child will come and tell you before they begin to deal with situations on their own? Are you just going to shut the door and leave the child out there with everything he has to deal with in today's world just because you want to prove a point that you know better? Or would you cut the child some slack and just take a moment to put yourself in that child's shoes and listen and offer empathetic responses, as you respond to the child? And another thing you can do when it comes to effective communication is also helping the child to problem solve. So as much as you want to actively listen, as much as you want to, just give your child the safe space to unburden and all of that. It's not also about you jumping in to say, okay, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. You also need to encourage the child to task his problem solving skills. So now that you've spoken in this manner, what do you think we should do? Instead of saying, okay, so this is what I think we should do, ask the child, so what do you think we should do? How do you think you can get out of this situation? How do you think we can prepare better for this test, for this exam, so that we can get better results the next time you try? Let the child also, think about solutions, because trust me, you're not going to be there every waking moment of the day with the child. So we want to try as much as possible to also train the child on how to come up with effective solutions to problems. We want to train the child to be able to come up with, way out when he finds himself in certain situations. So just create that safe space. Let your home can be anywhere. Home is not a location, right? Let your home be a heaven where the child is at rest, where the child is at peace to say, you know what, anything I say here, I am sure of the love I'm going to get. I'm sure of the backing. I'm sure of the support and all of that, no matter what the child has done. I mean, even if a child has done something wrong, let the first thing the child is thinking about be, oh, I need to call my mom, I need to call my dad, I need to call my brother, my sister, instead of saying, oh, I need to run away from home. Let us keep these things in mind always, with the knowing that in today's world, we really, really need to be intentional about our parenting journey. And in all of this, when you're able to communicate effectively, you are giving room for the child to also giving this child the opportunity to say, okay, let me run home, let me run to my mom to share these things, let me run to my dad to share these things. This is so important. And then the fourth thing you need to do as a parent who wants to raise a child who would be successful is to understand your child. You need to understand the child you are raising. There is no one size fits all when it comes to raising a child. You can have a set of twins who would have different personalities. You could have raised 5 amazing children, but it doesn't mean that the 6th child who is incoming would need to be raised the same way these other children have been raised. We need to understand that children are unique in every sense of the word, right? And God has packaged different purposes, different assignments in every child as He releases them to the earth. So I want you to understand that to parent a child who will be successful, you need to be a student of that child. You need to observe that child. You need to understand the child you are raising. You need to understand the child you're dealing with. Let me use this example to explain further. So you buy an iPhone, right? And then you just go ahead, and you begin to use the iPhone. Let's say you've been using other smartphones, right? You've been using other smartphones effectively, wonderfully, getting good results and all of that. And then you get this iPhone, the latest one, and you just dive in and begin to use it the same way you've been using an Android phone or any other kind of smartphone. You might get to a point where you get stuck. For example, you might get to the point where you're like, oh, why is the picture quality like this? Why am I not able to do this? Why am I not able to do that? Well, the truth is you are encountering that problem because you dived into using your iPhone, forgetting that there are certain things you need to understand about this new device that you just got. And that's how we approach parenting most times. And the truth is, if you are not able to understand that new device, which is the iPhone, you might just not get the best out of that phone. You might not be able to use it optimally. The things that are there, right, that could be beneficial to you, you might just overlook them because you've not taken time to study the characteristics. You've not taken time to understand how that device works. And that's how we get into parenting most times. We just feel that, oh, I raised 4 fantastic children, so I think I'll do just fine with this 5th child. Okay, so 4 of my children used to go to bed at 8 p.m. and 4 of my children, they used to eat vegetables. Like, once I just give them vegetables, they consume the vegetables, no complaint and all of that. You'll be shocked that the incoming child might be fussy when it comes to taking vegetables. Do you understand? So there's no one size fits all when it comes to raising children because they are unique. They have their peculiarities. So it is important that you become a student of your child. Observe your child. Why does this child act like this? What is the personality of this child? Why does this child react this way when I scold him in the presence of his siblings? Meanwhile, I have another child who does not even care. Even if I scold the child in public, even if I scold the child in front of his siblings, this child doesn't care. But then you scold the next child that same way and the child withdraws. This child feels damaged. This child feels disempowered. This child feels like, oh, let this ground just open. I just want this ground to swallow me. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad right now. Yeah, that's because you do not even understand that this particular child has a different personality. So to raise a successful child, you need to know who you are raising. Just like a farmer, if you don't understand the seeds you're dealing with, you might not get good harvest. If you don't understand how a tomato seed works, how it grows, right? You go and plant it in the soil where rice is supposed to grow, your harvest is going to be badly impacted. Do you understand? And this is one of the major things that I teach in the Winning in Parenting Academy, how to understand your child. I mean, I have a course on that as well. How to understand the personality of your child such that you are able to raise the child without losing the child. Such that you are able to raise the child without the child losing the essence of himself. Now, let me use you as an example. Let's say you love to dance, right? You love to dance, and then you get a role where, okay, let me use aerobics, or let me use your fitness routine as an example. So you love to dance, and you just love to dance, and everything about you is just dance. I mean, you're standing, you're dancing, and all of that. And then your coach says, you know what? You need to get on this exercise routine. I mean, you need to get on it, and you're like, oh, I don't like to do these things and all of that. And then the coach says, okay, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we work on a dance routine while you're doing your exercises? How would you feel? You would feel good. You would feel happy. You'll be excited because you are still doing your thing. You're still dancing, yet you are exercising. Do you understand? So you are achieving your goal to be fit, yet you're not losing your true essence as a dancer or as someone that loves to dance. That's what I'm talking about. Lots of parents have made their children lose their essence. Now, these children have been fashioned in a way that they are able to, they would be able to walk in their path according to the purpose that God has ordained for them. But you know what? Because of the fact that some parents don't understand these things, they have dimmed the light of their children. They have taken away the essence of the child just because they want the child to behave in a particular way. So you have a child who is always talking, for example. Because you don't understand these things, you're like, this child is always disturbing us in this house. This child is always making noise. But you don't realize that talking can be an assignment for the child. Talking can be purpose for the child. So it's your duty as a parent to understand the gifting of your child, to understand what your child is good at and say, okay, so I am going to guide you on this path. I'm going to direct you on this path. I'm going to give you that platform that would help you succeed on this path. We have children who are preteens already, and their parents have not been able to identify the gifting in that child. The child is drawing, the child is painting, the child is dancing, the child is speaking in a creative manner, and you're like, oh, this child, you can tell lies. The child is actually not lying. That child might just be a creative writer. But if you have not been able to study the child to that extent, you begin to beat the child to say, you are a liar. You are a liar and all of that. So it is important that we understand the children we're raising so that we can raise them and help them to fulfill their destiny. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to what you must do as a parent to raise a successful child is to lead by example. We cannot downplay this factor. You need to lead by example as a parent. You need to lead by example. You cannot say one thing and do the opposite, because children see and children do, right? You need to be a good role model. You need to live out the example that you want your children to carry out, because your children would mirror you. You cannot be dishonest and expect to raise honest children. They would question you and you will leave them confused. You cannot have a love of learning, and you can't say, oh, I don't have a love for learning, I have a fixed mindset and all of that. Or you're so pessimistic and then you want to raise children who will be optimistic. It doesn't work that way. Your children want to see you do what you're asking them to do. They want you to lead them by example. They want you to show them the way, not tell them the way. We love to tell them what to do, but how much are we showing them? How much are we showing them? How well are we living out the life that we're mapping out for them to live? This is so important. You want your children to know how to apologize to people when they do things wrong. But how many times do you apologize when you do things wrong, or when you're being corrected in your home, even though you're the parent? How many times do you apologize, for making promises that you're not able to keep? Or do you just say, please go away, Joe, don't worry, we'll do it tomorrow? No. Your children are counting on you. They are learning from you. And don't even worry, don't bother that your children are not listening to you. Be more concerned that they are watching you, because they are truly watching and they will shock you. Have you not seen situations where you find little children trying to mimic their parents? They mimic them so well. Even when it comes to praying, you find some children praying in tongues, just like their parents do. That's because you don't even need to talk. You don't even need to tell them, do this and do that all the time. Just ensure that you are doing these things. You want them to be accountable, yet you are not accountable. Nobody can ask you any question. Nobody can talk to you. It's either your way or the highway. Nobody can correct you, and yet you want to correct your children. Yet you want them to listen. Yet you want them to be accountable. It doesn't work that way. So it's important that we are able to understand that to lead our children effectively, to raise them to become successful, we also need to begin to lead by example. We need to show them the way. You say you want your children to love to read, but they've never seen you carry a book to read, right? You want them to love to speak calmly with their inner voice, but then you yell when you're speaking. You want your children not to fight among themselves. You want them to settle disputes amicably, but yet you're not able to do that. You speak to the people around you in ways that are derogatory, yet you want your children to speak to people with kindness and empathy. It doesn't work that way. We need to begin to lead by example. This is one of the fastest ways to get children to imbibe our values and to learn. Now, I want us to remember that parenting is a dynamic and evolving process, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach to it, because every child is unique. So we need to keep working on ourselves so we can stay abreast. I'm not saying you need to be on your toes as a parent, because once you get your skills right, once you plant the right seeds into the child, once you're able to build a solid foundation, then you have lessened your work greatly. right? So I'm not talking about you staying on your toes because you are raising children in today's world. No, I'm talking about you being abreast of the information that is out there, right? You being abreast of what is trending. What are the things that are targeted at your children in today's world? What are the areas where they're facing, where children, where young people are facing challenges? How much do you know about those things? How much of a conversation can you hold up with your child when it comes to those issues? When it comes to things that are trending today, can you have a conversation with your children about those things? Or you say, oh, I don't know, that's what they say is happening. I don't even know. So what is it? What is it about this? No. Your children will see that you're not prepared. They will see that you don't even know these things. And trust me, they will go and get information outside. And how can you trust the integrity of the source of the information they're going to get outside? And so it's important that we upskill when it comes to parenting. It's important that we scale up. It's important that we evolve, get knowledge, so that you become the first informant of your child. You are the greatest influencer of your child. The impact you have in the life of your child cannot be quantified. So let us take advantage of all of this that we have at our disposal and begin to raise children who would thrive in today's world. I hope you found this helpful. Please, I want you to share this video. If you have questions, please keep them coming. I would love to answer your questions. I wanted to share this video to every parent you know, everyone who's raising children, educators, everyone who you know would find this helpful. I want to share this with them, and I will be so happy to support you in your parenting journey as well. You can send a chat, right? If you need to, if you're looking to get support in your parenting journey, you're wondering how you can navigate your parenting journey, you have challenges, you're wondering how to connect with your child, you're wondering how to discipline your child effectively, you're wondering how to nurture your bond, how to, talk to your child about sex education and all of that. I want you to send a chat to the number or just click the link somewhere on this video or in the comments, and I will be happy to support you. I also look forward to you joining our program for parents, where I show them the framework they need to raise wholesome and well-balanced children. My name is Sandra Oluwadare, and I'm a parenting coach and a child behavior consultant. I'm the founder Winning in Parenting. If you are not subscribed to this channel, I want you to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any content I share on this page. Thank you so much for staying with me, and I am